Hello, beautiful, amazing, bright soul. And thank you for being here and joining me for this video today. Today, I'm going to be sharing a little bit about timelines and quantum shifts. So they can be relatively simple concepts, but unless we've experienced them, the terminology can seem a little bit abstract or a little bit nebulous. And the way I experience our lives and our reality, it's kind of in a very visual sense. And so I'm going to try and convey that to you a little bit, and also how we can utilize the current energies to make these quantum shifts. Now, I'm using the term shifts instead of quantum leap because I find that when we're dealing with the density of our manifested reality, it can be, it's possible to make quantum leaps, these dramatic shifts in experience or manifested life, but it's a lot easier to approach it from a more subtle transformation, which I would call a quantum shift. And so this is where we can incrementally shift and transform our experience and our reality based on our utilization of our conscious frequency and the way we resonate and interact with our experience and our environment. So thank you for joining me for this. If you have any experience yourself about the thinning of the veil and the way you experience timelines and these shifts, I'd love to hear it. So just pop that in the comments below. So jumping in, timelines. Now, I think once you've experienced these shifts, it can be quite straightforward. But I also know that, like I said, they can be quite an abstract concept. So, if you think of a timeline, if you think of the life that you have lived up until this point, everything. So you're currently living a particular timeline. The trajectory of your life is probably going in a certain direction, and it will continue to do so. That's your manifested timeline, the timeline that your consciousness is currently anchored into. And, to get to this point, you've probably crossed several timelines, because timelines crossing, often they represent choice points. And if you want, I did a video on choices being portals to different realities. So I'll pop the link to that at the end of this video. But every choice that you make will align you with a different timeline. And timeline, as I said, is just a manifested reality. And so as we move through our lived experience, as we shift and transform our frequency, we will come into alignment or out of alignment with certain timelines. If we start to make choices to take better care of our health, we may shift away from a timeline which manifested illness and into a timeline where we enjoy our lives more, we have more vitality. And so that's the way that these choices can work. But yeah, so timelines. So we are constantly shifting from one timeline to another, simply by, even by our thoughts, our emotions, the way that we choose to resonate, so we can have a thought come in, but we don't have to adopt that thought as being true. And this is how we can use the subtler realm and the energy of thought forms to shift between timelines as well. And so, they are literally pathways that represent our manifested reality and our manifested frequency. It's all energy based. And when we jump timelines, we're navigating quantum shifts, shifts of all the, so at any given time in the realm of possibility, or the quantum realm, we have access to an infinite number of realities and an infinite number of timelines, and this is where we're constantly creating. And so it's our capacity to anchor into any one of these particular timelines. So, one of the meditations I take people through in my program is connecting to our higher self and our higher timeline. to draw that energy into our experience so that we can then align with that manifested reality. But if we continue to imagine the worst possible outcomes, then we're kind of aligning ourselves with that timeline. Now, that timeline it exists in the quantum as an unmanifested reality, but it's our frequency and our the direction of our thoughts and expression and interaction that will either manifest our consciousness into that timeline or leave it as a potential. Whereas we choose to experience things that are expansive, uplifting, vital, full of joy. And this is where your conscious choice, you're so powerful. Like, you're so powerful in creating the way you experience your world. And this occurs through many levels. And so as we start to go through the spiritual expansion, it will begin to notice it on subtler levels, in terms of just deciding maybe how we want to start the day and little things like that, up to really big choice points where we will be really aware of the fact that we're navigating a big quantum shift. And we can feel the changes with the small steps, and often one of the things that will indicate you're stepping into a quantum shift or a big choice point, a shift in timeline, is the way it feels in your body. Often it will not feel comfortable. So if you can be really present and not run away from the discomfort of navigating the unfamiliar and navigating, sit with it. It doesn't mean that we always have to make the uncomfortable choices, but it does mean that we do need to consider them and consider, does this choice point, does this outcome align with the timeline that I want to manifest? Or will this choice simply be a continuation of what always has been, always will be? Because if we continue to do what we've always done, we'll continue to get what we've always got. And that's why, we stay traveling on the same timeline, is because we're kind of blinkered. We don't know what our potential is, but our potential is limitless. I get excited by this. So it can feel like, I often feel really quite fuzzy and discombobulated when I'm faced with something which involves an element of risk, but I know it's a quantum shift, and one of the things I want to share with you, which happened, and it's been really noticeable since 2020 and all the rubbish that went on in the world since then, but probably early to mid 2020, I started noticing, like, I could literally almost see like a translucent overlay of reality playing out. There was, it was almost like deja vu, but kind of present moment and really lived experience. But, there was this choice, there were choice points, but it was simply, I'd be walking down the street and there'd be the experience of one reality, and then there'd be the slightly altered energetic imprint of another reality and another pathway, what I'll say, another timeline that I could live into. And so during that period, I felt very grateful that I was able to identify that and then consciously choose how to resonate my energy. Consciously keep choosing to do the courageous thing, or to do the thing which aligned with what felt expansive, with what felt like becoming the person that I wanted to be, because that's all it's about. It's about asking ourselves, if I could be anyone, who would I want to be? How would that look? How would that person feel? How would that person behave and experience life? What sort of things would they do? And then making our choices based on that alignment. Yeah. So let me know if this is landing for you. I'd love to hear any comments. So it's through, so this is basically, I think I've gone a bit deeper than I intended, but that's what a timeline is. And so if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling stagnant in where you are in life, maybe it's time to look at shifting, to look at explore, like diverting into a different timeline. Maybe the timeline that you're on is not tapping into your potential, and so maybe it's time to start exploring or looking for inspiration, being open to the magic, being open to look for these, I suppose, these subtle crossroads in timelines, these subtle choice points. And instead of running on autopilot, we can consciously start to dance and start to engage with expansion, potential, and the quantum, start to call forth the experiences we want instead of, just putting one step after the next, doing the same thing we've always done and never expecting to get anything different, because we absolutely can have, a more colorful and vital experience of life. So, with our consciousness, we have the capacity to shift. Everything occurs in the now, but based on our conscious frequency, it will determine on what part of the eternal now we are experiencing. So just let that sit with you. Let the potential of that statement sit with you. Because that was kind of where it all began for me. So yeah, so I really invite you, this point in time, what we're experiencing on a collective global level, like with all these shifts, a few years ago they coined the term the Great Awakening, and it really is. Consciousness on the planet has never been at a more refined and heightened frequency, meaning that as we shift from density into lighter versions of ourselves, the veil is thinning, and that's like my story with the being able to perceive the different imprints of manifested reality. As it's not like, say, 10 or 15 years ago, where it was more like trying to move through molasses. Now it's much thinner, a much finer web that we're trying to move through when we're manifesting these shifts, and we're consciously moving between timelines. So I invite you to really, really make the most of that and allow yourself to tap into what lights you up and where your potentiality, what ignites your sense of being alive and purpose and joy, because that's what we need to follow in these times. And that's what will guide us to our highest timeline and our highest manifestations. So, beautiful souls, thank you for joining me. If this video resonated, I would love for you to comment and just let me know what you think. If you have any questions, and if you like this content and would like to be notified of future videos, please do click subscribe. I would love to have you on board. So have a beautiful day. Much love.